Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Portugal for EU4 1.34 Lions of the North. So Portugal is a nation that's located in Iberia. The borders are pretty much the same as the present day, and it is one of the most beginner-friendly nations in the game, I would say, along with Castile and the Ottomans. By playing as Portugal, you will become the primary colonizer in the world, and even though you start off as a sort of weak and sort of insignificant nation, in about 50 years' time, you will become the most powerful nation in the world, and you will go on to form the greatest colonial empire in the game. Portugal has some amazing national ideas that focus on colonization and trading, which go hand in hand. We start off with plus 10% infantry combat ability and fleet movement speed, which is pretty important. Then we have global tariffs plus 20%, which is very nice for the colonies. And then we have morale of navies and colonial range. A double idea is always nice. Goods produced, one of the best modifiers in the game. Global trade power, global settler increase, trade efficiency, construction discounts and absolutism, and fort defense and artillery fire. So these amazing national ideas paired with this amazing extensive mission tree will help you to go on to form the most powerful nation in the world in no time. And before we begin, if you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like. It really helps out a lot. And boys, consider subscribing. I am trying to reach 100k subs before New Year, and maybe with your support, we can do it. We're almost there, so let's give it one final push. Let's take a look at what we need to do as Portugal. Alright, here we are as Portugal. Now, like I said at the start, Portugal is one of the easiest nations, and it is one of the most beginner-friendly nations. So I'm assuming a lot of you watching will not want to get involved in European affairs, and instead you'll want to focus on colonization and learning the chill colonial game. So right at the start, you do have to make that decision. Are you going to get involved with Europe? Or are you not going to get involved with Europe? Because it does matter. Based on that decision, we're going to decide what to do with Castile. So if you're a new-ish player, you're simply going to ignore everything I'm doing over in Europe, and instead you're going to follow along with everything else. But that's the decision you'll have to make. Will you ally Castile and be friends with them for the entirety of the game and not get involved here? Or will you not ally Castile right at the start and instead fight them, try and conquer the entirety of Iberia, and maybe go on to form Spain? So decide on that. And based on that, we will either ally or rival them. But first, you can go ahead and go into your estates to do the estate setup. The first thing we're going to do is summon the Diet. You can pick whichever agenda is best for you. And if you do get an agenda that gives you claims on Morocco, you should take it. It does happen sometimes. Next, we're going to give the clergy religious state and clerical advisory council, along with religious diplomats. We're going to give the nobility primacy of the nobility, increased levies, and aristocratic counselors. And we're going to give the burghers land of commerce, patronage of the arts, commercial advisory board, and indebted to the burghers. Then we're going to seize land. After you get that setup done, you should be able to take the mission English Alliance, where England's opinion of us is increased, which is actually not important, and instead we gain a permaclaim on Galicia and Asturias. Those are these areas right here. If you're not getting involved with Castile, this doesn't matter to you. Next, we can go ahead and select our naval doctrine. Portugal does have a unique naval doctrine called the Portuguese Marines, which gives us +1 blockade impact on siege, Marines force limit plus 50%, and minus 40% naval barrage cost. This is a good naval doctrine if you're getting involved in Europe, and even if you're not, it will help you when you fight the Maghrebi nations. So we're gonna take this for now. When we're done with stuff over here, you can simply swap to something else like ship trade power or ship boarding. But more on that later. Next, we're gonna go into our advisors, and it is time to hire 3 advisors. Portugal is a poor-ish nation right at the start, and you will struggle with cash a little bit in the early game, but later, once we get everything settled, you will be swimming in cash. So even if you're losing a bit of money, don't worry. We'll get that sorted later. So go ahead and hire whichever level 1 admin advisor you can. I have this national unrest guy. Get a diplo rep or improve relations level 1 diplo advisor. If you don't have one, hire someone else. I'm gonna get this diplo rep guy and get a morale, discipline, or fort defense or manpower level 1 mill advisor. I don't have any of those, so I'm just gonna get this land force limit guy. Next, you may be able to pass the Advancement of Religion Act if you have a national unrest guy. If you don't, you'll just pass it later. With this mission right here done, English Alliance, we can actually go ahead and break our alliance with England. We don't want to be allied to England even though we start off allied. They'll drag us into wars versus France, France will come beat us up, and it's generally not a good idea to be allied to England. So go ahead and break this alliance. And if you're remaining friendly with Castile, go ahead and ally them. If you're not, don't ally them. Simple as that. And instead, you should try and ally a Castilian rival if you're gonna fight them. Like in my case, France, Morocco, or England. I am gonna attempt to ally France, so I will start improving relations with them. And you should also ally the Pope. So for your alliances, it's just Castile and the Pope, or if you're fighting Castile, someone like France and the Pope. we only need 2 allies. Next, we're gonna go into our rivals, and we're gonna rival Castile if you're planning on fighting them. If not, just rival the 3 Maghrebi nations. I am gonna rival Castile because I am fighting them, and then Morocco and Tlemcen as well. Next, we need to do the mission competitive advantage and launch a flagship, and for that we need to go ahead and construct some boats. But what's even more interesting is that Portugal also starts off with an explorer already. This guy will help us explore and discover uncolonized provinces to help us with colonization later. So what you're gonna do is take these 5 light ships right here and detach 3 from them, and then to those 3 light ships you're gonna attach Diogo Gomez and tell him to explore wherever it is available. And we're also gonna tell the 2 remaining light ships to protect trade in Sevilla and go home during war. Additionally, we're gonna take this main navy right here with the 3 heavies and 11 transports and go ahead and delete 1 transport. And we're gonna start constructing some boats. Go ahead and build 7 galleys, basically 1 in every available province. This will take us over naval force limit, but it's not a problem. Now we need to wait for those boats to finish building. During this point, if you're friendly with Castile, you can go ahead and delete the fort in Evora and in Lisbon as well. If you're planning on fighting Castile, keep those forts, but for now, you can turn them off to save money. After this, we're gonna go into our army tab and slacken recruiting standards to get some manpower, because we're gonna lose the professionalism either way once we hire mercenaries. And then you can simply hire 5 more infantry regiments. We do also start off with a general, and we're gonna put him in charge of the army. And for now, while you're waiting for your ships to recruit, you can lower army maintenance. At this point, while the war between France and England is going on, I have gotten the opportunity to ally France, and I will do so. If you can do it during this point as well, do it. They might call you in versus England, but it's fine. Of course, you're only going to be allying France if you've chosen not to ally Castile. And this is pretty much your alliance network sorted, like I said earlier. Either the Pope and Castile or the Pope and France. And there it is, France is calling me versus England, but this is something expected if you ally them during this war. Of course, I will accept, and you should too if you find yourself in this situation. Once your ships have finished building, you will be able to take the mission competitive advantage, which gives us naval tradition, diplo points, and a permanent claim on Tangier, which is this province down here. Additionally, after we've built those ships, now we have the ability to build a flagship as well. And it is very important that we do build one. And when you do build your flagship, you are going to want to select it to be a light ship, at least for now, because now we're focusing on exploring. Of course, later you could just destroy it and build a heavy for combat. But we do have 4 unique flagship abilities here as Portugal. We got the fleet exploration range plus 1.25, the naval barrage discount, the trade power per ship and fleet, and the movement speed on and off ships. Because this ship is going to be a part of the exploration fleet, we are going to want to select Portuguese navigators right here, and that's totally fine for now. But if you plan on keeping it around a little bit longer, you could of course select 1 or 2 of these as well to help you with other stuff too. It's solely up to you if you select only this one to save some money or get some additional ones too. For now, I am going to select only the fleet exploration range, and then later, when we're basically done exploring, I'll just build a new flagship with all the nice combat and trade modifiers. Building a flagship will help us complete this mission right here, which will give us permaclaims on other Castilian areas and even more naval tradition. Now that our army and navy is looking like it should, all we have to wait for is for the regency right here to end, which ends 3 years after you start the game. And there we go, the regency has just ended in my case, and after it ends in your case as well, it's time to possibly start our first war, and of course it's gonna be versus Morocco. Now Morocco has a couple of possible allies. Usually they ally Granada or Tunis, or maybe both of them sometimes, and if you wait long enough and if they become strong enough, it is possible for them to ally the Ottomans, although that shouldn't be a problem when you do your first war. So check and see who Morocco is allied to. In my case, it is Granada and Tunis, but that's still fine. You can still totally beat these guys by yourself. And in my case, Tunis won't even join, so that's excellent. And of course, before this war, you're gonna take your army down here to Ceuta, and you're gonna take your navy and recruit an admiral. And you're gonna put your navy down here in the Straits of Gibraltar. Once you're in position, you can simply go ahead and activate the defensive edict in Ceuta and go ahead and declare on Morocco for the conquest of Tangier. And there we go, that's your first war started. If you're lucky enough, Morocco's vassals might even be disloyal and they won't help out Morocco. In my case, however, they are loyal, so I will have to fight them. Of course, with the naval barrage ability that we selected earlier right here in our naval doctrine, it is 40% cheaper to bombard. And if your flagship has constructed, and if you've selected the naval bombardment minus 40%, it's 80% cheaper. So that's basically for free. So you can totally go ahead and bomb Fez, even if it's only 30 mil points. It's definitely worth it. I did forget to say that when you fight Morocco, you could take stuff from Granada. However, the problem is we can't co-belligerent them because at this point we still have a truce with Granada. Basically, when you start the war with Morocco, it's not possible to co-belligerent them. But if you want to, and if AE permits it, you could take provinces from Granada or even make them your subject. It's totally up to you. Interestingly enough, in my game right here, Granada has been reduced to a 1-province minor, so what I am gonna do right here is separate piece them and vassalize them. This is totally not something that's necessary, I'm just doing it because I have the opportunity. You don't have to do this. And there we go, I can reconquer their course from Castile because I am planning on fighting Castile. Like I said, if you're not getting involved in Europe, this is not something you should concern yourself with. And once you have enough war score to peace out Morocco for the following provinces, you can go ahead and peace out, which is pretty much 60 to 70% war score. And in this first war versus Morocco, what we want to get are these 4 coastal provinces over here in the state of North Morocco, along with the very annoying fort in Fez, so we won't have to siege it down 50 times later when we fight them again. You could also humiliate them if you want. If you get enough war score, you could take war reps, you could take money, or you could not take anything else to keep your truce as short as possible. In my case, I am gonna take their money. And that's your first war with Morocco done. You should have taken these 4 provinces along with Fez. After you do that, you will be able to take the mission Conquer Tangier, which gives us admin points, pretty much enough to core this up, some prestige, and further permaclaims on these areas right here. And that's your first war done. It's time to go back home. At this point, we have 3 forts right here. You can totally go ahead and delete the one in Tangier and the one in Ceuta as well. Fez is pretty good. It's in the mountains. Alternatively, you could delete Fez and keep Ceuta. It's up to you. After you finish this up, you can improve with your allies and with outraged countries. If for some of you, the initial explorer Diogo Gomez right here dies in the early game, I do recommend simply Alt F4ing and hopping back into the game so he doesn't die. We want to try and keep him around until we can hire actual explorers from exploration ideas. After a flagship is finished building, you will be able to take the mission Launch a Flagship, which gives us more navy tradition and permaclaims on these areas right here. After that, you can take this lightship and merge it with your exploration fleet, and simply leave it with 2 other lightships so they can explore. I'm gonna tell these 2 other ones to join with the fleet that's protecting trade in Sevilla. And of course, once you do get it, you will be able to explore further. Once you've wrapped up your first war with Morocco, if you're planning on fighting Castile, it's time to prepare to actually fight them and see if any of your allies, meaning France, will help you fight them. In my case, they would join, but not right now since they're fighting another war, and that's only versus Provence, so it should be done quick. If you're not gonna fight Castile, and after you've teched up to Tech 4 in every category, you should activate Encourage Development over in your capital state and bump Lisbon up to 30 development. This will help speed up the spawning of the Renaissance, and it'll also help us tick off the age objective for controlling a large city. Of course, you can also expand infrastructure to make it even cheaper to dev, and I do recommend that. So right now it's 45 points to dev with Encourage Development on, and if I expand infrastructure, it's a 33. So we've definitely saved more points than we've used. This will not slow us down too much in taking tech and ideas. We're good with that, so don't worry about using up those points in Lisbon. As for the provinces you take over here in this region, what I recommend is adding all of them to a trade company. Now, of course, we do start off with Ceuta stated, so automatically after you take these provinces and core them up, they will be full cores. So you can actually unstate Ceuta before you core these provinces and turn that into a trade company as well, or you can simply keep this in a state and then trade company everything else. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave North Morocco as a state. It will contribute to religious disunity, but it's fine, and instead I'll trade company everything that's located in Safi, just like that, which for now is only 1 province in Fez, but of course later it will grow. You will want to enable promote investments. If you're getting ready to fight Castile, make sure to build a spy network on them. Yes, we do have claims, but the spy network will help us siege faster. If you're not, that's totally fine. You can simply spy on Tlemcen if they're here, or maybe even Tunis, or maybe even Tafilalt if you border them. Once you get 50 papal points for your first one, I recommend taking Blessed Ruler for the morale if you're planning on fighting Castile. If not, you can take something else. Since I am planning on fighting Castile, I will take this. For your tier 2 government reform, for now, I recommend going strength and noble privileges. Later, when you have a ton of manpower, you can totally swap to noble officer core. But for now, strength and noble privileges. Once you're done with coring everything from Morocco, it's time to possibly get ready for your war with Castile if you're fighting them at all. If you're not fighting Castile, you can simply focus on fighting some other nations over in the Maghreb. We don't really care about aggressive expansion when fighting anyone up to here. So Tunis, these small guys, Tlemcen, Moroccan vassals, you can choose to fight whoever you want over here, or if you want to chill some more, you can continue to dev your capital and explore some more as well. Let's see over here. In my case, France would help me out versus Castile, and Castile can have some strong allies, and those are England and France, or Aragon. So those are the three strongest nations that Castile can ally. But with the help of France, you should be able to take on either combination of those alliances. In my case, they are allied to Aragon. And another bonus for us is that Castile starts off with the horrible ruler and heir. So you might be ahead of them in Miltech, and France might be ahead as well. In my case, we're on par, but it doesn't matter too much. Either way, you can go ahead and declare on Castile for the conquest of this province right here, and call in your ally France. If they aren't willing to help you out now, they might later. And if you're not fighting Castile, it's totally cool. And once you completely beat up Castile, if you're even fighting them, here's what I recommend taking from them in this first war. First, we're gonna take this province right here and La Mancha. This is so we can connect to La Mancha, and it's very important because it is a gold mine. It is gonna fund our early colonization. After that, we're also gonna take that province right there and these three provinces right here. This province is important not only to connect us to La Mancha, but we can also pop out the nation of Leon from here and reconquer their cores. From this province up here that we're taking, we're gonna pop out the nation of Galicia, reconquer their cores. These provinces right here are so we can connect down to this land down here. And this is normally enough, but since I have Granada as a subject, I'm also gonna make Castile return these three provinces to them. So if you don't have Granada, this is what you're gonna do. If you do have Granada, well, give anything that you can back to them. After that, you can also take war reps and the rest of their money. And that's your first war with Castile done. Now that you've wrapped this up, you should release Leon. They should pop out of here. And these are their cores that we're gonna reconquer. And you should also pop out Galicia. These are the cores that we're gonna reconquer. And of course, you're gonna state up La Mancha and then dev it up to 10 production so we can make some nice money from gold. That's your first war with Castile done. You may not think we've crippled them enough, but after the other war, well, they're pretty much not gonna exist. You shouldn't worry if they get Aragon. As long as you have France on your side, everything will be okay. Now that your war with Castile is done, it's time to go back home and chill, maybe start colonizing, and maybe get back to fighting the Maghrebi nations. When you get to around 1460, make sure to lower autonomy everywhere because during all this time, it has been increasing from the low percentage of crownland that we have. Make sure to do this. For your first age ability, you should of course select Portugal's unique age ability, Portuguese Colonial Growth, for plus 50 global settler increase. And once you reach Admin Tech 5, for your first idea group as Portugal, you should of course select Exploration Ideas. By this point, my explorer has died, but now I can simply hire a new one just by unlocking that idea. And as soon as we take the second idea, we're gonna start colonizing. Once you unlock your first colonist, the first province you should colonize is the province of Arguin right here because it is the most far away. Yes, it is technically further than Cape Verde over here. And of course, once you do get that first colonizer, you will be able to take the mission beyond Cape Bojador, which gives you 10 prestige and plus 20% settler chance. You should take it. Of course, you should select a native policy as well. You have native coexistence where they don't rise up. This one is sort of balanced right here where colonization is slightly faster and they'll rise up slightly more rarely. And this one right here means that they will rise up always, but global settler increase is quite fast. Now, of course, the best one is this final one. You will colonize the quickest, but you will need to station armies in the provinces that you're colonizing in order to defeat the natives first. You can choose whichever one you want to. If you want to get more involved in colonization, you should take this one. However, if you want to just chill and focus on stuff over here while your colonies automatically build themselves, you should select this one down here. I'm more of a hands-off player myself, so I'll be going with this one, even though it is the slowest, but it's totally up to you which one you pick. And now I'm gonna send my first colonist in this province right here. It is the furthest away, which is what we want. Of course, for faster colonization, you should also give the burghers grant New World charters. At this point, of course, we're not only colonizing and expanding through wars, we should also focus on building up our nation and making some money. I have just taken some new burgher loans and now I'm up to 600 ducats. And of course, the first buildings you want to build are marketplaces. I've already built one in Lisbon, but we can go ahead and put one in Porto, basically in all the center of trade and estuary provinces. I'm going to put one in Sevilla as well, and I'm going to put one in Tangier too. Pretty much build them in every province that gives you more than 2 trade power, and I do need to construct one over here as well. And then I'm going to put a church in Lisbon too. Why not? Of course, don't forget to add everything you colonize in the Ivory Coast to your trade company as well. which does include the province of Arguin and Cape Verde over here too. Once again, make sure to activate promote investments. Once you've chilled a bit after you fought Castile, or even if you haven't fought Castile, once your truce with Morocco and these guys is up, you can continue to push into the Maghreb, pretty much whenever you're ready. Right now, Marrakesh and Sousse have broken free from Morocco and they're allied to Castile and Aragon, so I'm not going to be fighting them, but I am going to declare on Tafilal right here. It doesn't matter if you can't fight Morocco, fight whoever you can in the Safi and Tunis trade nodes. We basically want to own both of these, up until here sorta. So I'm going to go ahead and declare on Tafilal. They do have a gold mine, which is very important. In my case, the Iberian wedding has just happened and Castile has just gotten Aragon. This doesn't matter too much, even if you're fighting Castile or not fighting them. It won't be a problem. However, keep in mind that if you are friendly with Castile at this point, they may get a Restoration of Union CB on you and they might turn hostile and break their alliance with you. In that case, find another strong ally until their CB expires, and then you can just re-ally Castile. They shouldn't declare on you during this point, even if they have the CB. And now that I've defeated Tafilal, I will be full annexing them. You'll be taking as much as you can from any of these nations that you're fighting in the Maghreb. Now, even though we are trade companying stuff in the Safi trade node, make sure not to trade company the state of Tafilal right here, because this is the gold mine right here and we actually want to state it up and not trade company it and dev it up to 10 so we can make nice money from gold. So that's why I'm only going to trade company draw right here. Once you start colonizing Arguin right here, you should start spying on whichever nation is located right here on the coast, which is probably going to be Jolof. We are interested in the provinces that they own in the Ivory Coast trade node, so we will want to fight them. We are a technologically superior nation, so this war should be easy no matter which and how many allies they have. So start spying on whoever is located in pretty much one of these two provinces. Once your colony in Arguin is finished, you will be able to take the mission Colonize West Africa, where you gain an explorer with 60 tradition and 60 diplo points. Now we need to continue to expand further on the farthest we can. So once again, go into the economic map modes and choose colonial and see which is the furthest province you can colonize in Africa. Don't worry about the New World just yet. We're much more interested in Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. We'll get to the New World, don't worry about that. In my case, the furthest province I can go to is the Gold Coast right here, so that is precisely where I'm gonna go. We're basically province hopping until we can reach Southeast Asia and unlock some missions related to India down here. If at this point you can't take the mission, the Cape of Good Hope, make sure to build your navy up to force limit. In my case, I'm not up to force limit, so I am going to construct a few more light ships to this trade fleet I have. Of course, I'm going to add this to a trade company too. Now that I've built up additional ships, I can take the mission the Cape of Good Hope, where we gain prestige, sailors, and permaclaims on some areas over here. And up here that we can't see yet too. Even though we're working on a diplomatic idea group right now, make sure to, whenever you can, bump up La Mancha and Tafilal in production. Now that my truce with Marrakesh is up, I will declare on them as well. We do want to continue expanding in the Maghreb region. Like I said earlier, fight these guys whenever you can. For your tier 3 government reform, you should take exile colonial companies, mainly for the settler increase. It is good for colonizing nations. For your second age ability, you should take higher developed colonies for +1 dev in each category when a colony is finished. And now that I've defeated Marrakesh, I will be full annexing them. Like I said, take as much as you can and as much as you want from whoever you're fighting in the Maghreb. And that's my war with them done. Once you take the provinces in this area right here, the Garb area, you will be able to also unlock the mission Expand the Buffer Zone, which gives us some nice modifiers in the provinces that we just took. After this, you won't be getting any more claims over here from your missions, so you should manually spy on these guys right here. Once you colonize the furthest province over in this area right here, once again open the colonial region map mode and go to the next furthest one, which is most likely either going to be St. Helena or Luanda. You might think it's better to colonize Luanda in order to unlock this mission right here, where you need to colonize a province in the colonial Congo region, but St. Helena is in Congo as well. So go ahead and colonize that if that's your furthest one. For your second idea group as Portugal, you should of course go ahead and take expansion ideas. After you wrap up your second or third war with the Maghrebi nations, you can go ahead and focus back on Castile, because your truce by this point will have expired. Of course, if you're not fighting Castile, after you fight some of these guys, you should focus on fighting whoever is here and taking the Ivory Coast provinces. And if you've colonized close to Congo, maybe the province of Luanda, you can go ahead and fight Congo as well to take their Ivory Coast provinces as well. In my case, I am gonna hit Castile first, with the help of France, of course, and then focus on those guys. Of course, we're gonna be doing a reconquest for some of our vassal scores like Leon and Galicia. And there we go. By this point, Castile may be stronger and they may have Aragon and Naples as junior partners, but it's not a problem as long as you have a big ally like France. Once you get your second colonist from expansion ideas, that is when you can start colonizing the New World. And obviously, as Portugal, we want to focus on everything south of Mexico because that is what routes over to Sevilla. Of course, we're gonna keep sending this colonist to the same colonial region, and you can check that by going to the geographic map modes and then the colonial and trade regions. And then once we have 5 provinces in the same colonial region, a colonial nation will form. After that, you can send him to a different colonial region. Of course, by now you should be able to reach these areas right here, and the first colonial region I recommend that you start colonizing is actually the Caribbean, which is these provinces right here. All of these small islands right here, they are very highly developed, at least for uncolonized provinces, and they usually all have about 10 dev. And starting off with Puerto Rico isn't a bad idea at all because it is also a center of trade. So that's where I'm gonna establish my first colony. Once we get 5 provinces here and a colonial nation forms, I'll probably take that colonist over to Colombia or Brazil. Once you finish colonizing the province of St. Helena, you will be able to take the mission Settle in Central Africa, which gives you trade power in that trade node. After that, you should go to the furthest available province, which is gonna be this one if you're still at Diplotech 6. If you're at Diplotech 7, you may be able to go further. But for me, it's this one right here. And once you wrap up your second war with Castile, of course, what we're gonna focus on is returning our subject scores. So give everything back to Leon and everything back to Galicia, and then you can take something for yourself as well. What I'm gonna do is take these 3 provinces right here because 2 of them have centers of trade, and then I'm also gonna get war reps. And that's my second war with Castile done. After this, you should own about half of Iberia. When you start getting additional merchants from your trade companies, start writing trade from Africa first. This is where I put my 3rd merchant, which I got from this trade company right here, and now I got a 4th merchant from Expansion Ideas. I'm gonna tell that guy to collect in Sevilla for now because the Cape of Good Hope and the Caribbean are too far away for now. But as soon as they're in range, I'll send them down here or over here. Of course, after you give in Galicia and Leon their cores back, you can go ahead and give the nobility integration policy and start annexing one of these subjects. Make sure you've wrapped up exploration ideas before that though, because we will want to focus our diplo points on that. And after you're done with that, you can simply start annexing whichever of these guys you want. And when you're done, simply annex the other one. At this point, I just took out new burger loans. They are pretty large, and I am gonna upgrade Porto to a level 2 center of trade along with Sevilla, this province down here. After I develop Tangier twice, I'll bump that up too, and pretty much every center of trade that I own. Now that I'm done with my second war versus Castile, I will be focusing on some of the provinces in the Ivory Coast trade node, and you should be doing the same. If you're not fighting Castile, like I said earlier, you would have already done this. So I'm gonna declare on Jollof right now, I spied on them earlier, to get the Ivory Coast trade node provinces. Of course, these guys should be 3 or 4 tech levels behind you, so it's gonna be easy. Of course, if you can't walk over to their allies, all you gotta do is hire a conquistador. Easy. Now that I've finished colonizing this one province over in South Africa, once again, it's time to move on with the next furthest one, which is apparently this one right here. What we're doing right here is basically trying to get to India and Southeast Asia as fast as we can. Now that my colony in Puerto Rico is finished, of course, colonial range has increased over here, and we're still going to continue to colonize the Caribbean, but focus on the center of trade provinces first, like Jamaica, for example. And now that I've defeated Jollof, and once you've done the same, whether it's Jollof or whoever is here, you're gonna focus on taking all of the provinces that are in the Ivory Coast trade node. Sure, you could go further inland, try and get some of the gold producing provinces, but that doesn't really matter. We're more interested in this right here. So that's what I'm gonna do. Take all of their Ivory Coast trade node provinces, along with all their money and war ups too, I guess. There may only be one nation right here, just like in my case, or you may fight 2 or 3 nations. You're still gonna do the same. Don't forget to add all of this to the Ivory Coast Trade Company. And this is my merchant setup right now. I've moved them around. I got one guy transferring from Safi to Sevilla, another guy transferring from the Caribbean to Sevilla, one guy transferring from the Cape of Good Hope to the Ivory Coast, from the Ivory Coast over to Sevilla, and from Tunis to Sevilla as well. Since Sevilla has only one exit node right here, as we can see, and it's going to Valencia, we can pretty much make Sevilla basically an end node by controlling Valencia as well. This can be done with Sevilla, it can be done with Constantinople, pretty much with any trade node that has only one exit, and as long as it's not inland. Now that my colony down here is finished, this is the next furthest province that I'll go to. And once you discover certain provinces over in this region, you will be able to take the mission Horn of Africa. This mission isn't that important, but it enables us to unlock this mission right here, push to India, where a very nice event happens, and we get a very, very nice explorer. You'll see what happens when you discover Goa, and of course I will show you. It's sort of right here. If you happen to get the Tower of Belém event, where it basically constructs this monument monument in our capital to level 1 for 500 ducats instead of 1,000, you should definitely take it. The Tower of Belem is a very nice monument, and I'll touch more on monuments later. And once you do discover the province of Goa, which is located right here, and any other province in the Coromandel region, which is this right here, you will be able to take the mission Push to India, where we gain that explorer, and this event happens. Basically, Vijayanagar gives Goa to us, and that's very nice. That's our entry into India as well. You should add this to a trade company as well. There we go. And now we have the Coromandel Company as well. For your tier 4 government reform, I recommend taking lanes for the church. This is good for remaining Catholic for the entirety of the campaign. And by around the 1490s, your realm should look a little something like this. Basically, we started off as Portugal and focused on colonization immediately, working towards those idea groups. And we started off our wars by pushing into the Maghreb and fighting Morocco primarily, and then whichever nation you could. And by this point, you should own about a third or about half of the Maghreb. And if you decided on fighting Castile, you should own about half of Iberia. If you didn't, you're still friendly with Castile, and they're just chilling right here. Of course, those were the only primary wars that we were doing. You should have fought Castile at least 2 times by now, and you should have pushed into the Maghreb, and you should have the Tafilalt gold mine right here. Both gold mines are up to 10 production right now, and after that, once we focused on colonization, with our first colonist, of course, we province hopped all the way down the African coast so we can get to Goa faster, so we can get the event from Vijayanagar, probably, where they just give Goa to us. And after this, you should continue province hopping until you're present in Southeast Asia. Now, I've turned off Terra Incognita to show you what you need to go for. So basically, once you reach around this area right here, that is pretty much when you stop province hopping and start focusing heavily on colonization. Of course, you will get a third colonist as well right here from expansion, and with that, of course, you will have 3 colonists. Now, with 1, you will continue to colonize the New World, and you should aim to establish colonial nations in Mexico, the Caribbean, Colombia, Peru, Argentina, and Brazil. That is really what you want to focus on, so these 6 regions right here, and establish those 6 colonial nations. Like I said, once you get 5 provinces in the Caribbean, boom, a colonial nation would form, and you could go on to colonize Colombia. After Colombia is formed, you can go on with Brazil and Mexico and stuff like that. And of course, you will start bringing armies over here eventually to fight some of the natives, especially in Peru and in Mexico as well, and expand your colonial nations, not just through colonizing, but through conquest as well. That's what you're going to do with one of your colonists. With the second colonist, you are going to go back to colonizing Africa and actually every province that is uncolonized and that is available. By this point, you should have some provinces over here. You may have also fought Congo and own these provinces right here, but you should put that colonist back and colonize everything that's in the Ivory Coast trade node, that's in the Cape of Good Hope trade node, and in the Zanzibar trade node as well. And of course, you will be fighting these nations right here. Those are the most important regions that you want to own in Africa, basically the old colonial companies. Now, our missions do tell us to conquer over here a bit in the Gulf of Aden and Hormuz as well, although I don't think it is that important to follow along with these 2 branches down here for Hormuz and Oman, but you can definitely do it if you want to. So that's what you're going to do with your second colonist. Focus on the Ivory Coast, Cape of Good Hope, and Zanzibar. If you want, you can go inland, although it's totally not necessary. And with your third colonist, you're going to focus on this region right here. You shouldn't care too much about establishing Australia. This isn't a very rich colonial nation, but what you should focus on is colonizing these provinces over here in the greater Indonesia region, and especially the clove producing provinces over in this region right here. Basically, these 5 or 6 provinces right here. Of course, you will get armies down here as well, and you will also fight all of these nations over here. And the regions you should focus on, or basically the trade nodes that you should focus on, are the Moluccas, the Philippines, and Malacca. Those are the 3 important regions right here that you're going to focus on. And of course, the Australia and Polynesian Triangle trade nodes will go, most of them, to your colonial nation of Australia, whereas some provinces up here will go directly to you. If you even focus on colonizing this, it's not that important. So Malacca, the Moluccas, and the Philippines. Fight the nations there and colonize the uncolonized provinces. Of course, you do have a foothold in India by now with the province of Goa as well, and I do recommend pushing into India as well, and this is for all players. You should focus on the Coromandel, Deccan, Bengal, Doab, and Gujarat trade nodes, and that is what you should conquer. Route all the trade from Southeast Asia over to Bengal, all the trade from India over to Gujarat, from Gujarat to Zanzibar, from Zanzibar to the Cape of Good Hope, to the Ivory Coast, and then up to Sevilla. That is how your trade will run. And over in the New World, of course, you will want to route everything that's south down here to Brazil, then to the Ivory Coast, then to Sevilla, and everything from up here over to the Caribbean and then to Sevilla. And by the end of the campaign, you should aim to own basically everything that's south of Texas, these 3 coastal trade nodes in Africa, Southeast Asia, and India, and you will become the dominant power in the world in no time if you aren't already. I'm at 564 dev right now. That seems pretty standard, but pretty soon you're gonna shoot way up once you get your colonial nations established. Going back to Europe and North Africa, what you should focus on in North Africa is basically the Safi and Tunis trade nodes. That is your primary focus right here, and you should focus on conquering Iberia. And of course, if you want to, you could push further into Europe and take over the Bordeaux and Genoa trade nodes. And of course, later you could make Genoa your end node as well, although that isn't really necessary. What I'd do in my campaign right here is conquer all of Iberia, Safi and Tunis, Ivory Coast, Cape of Good Hope, Zanzibar, everything I just said over here, and everything I just said over here, and I probably wouldn't push further into France or into Italy. I'd basically make Sevilla my end node by conquering most of Valencia and all of the centers of trade. And that's really what you should focus on in Europe. And of course, later on, you could form Spain once you get all the necessary provinces. They do have really good national ideas, or you could stick with the Portuguese ones and stay as Portugal, depending on what your goals for the campaign are. By this point, money shouldn't be a problem at all. I'm making about 31 ducats right now, which isn't bad at all. Most of it is from trade and from gold, of course. If I lower army maintenance and turn off forts, I'm making almost 40, which isn't bad at all. This is what my army is looking like. I have 32 regiments. It's basically a 24-4 army. I should get some more cannons up, and after that I will be creating different stacks. Basically, I'll have 1 stack present over in this region right here, 1 stack probably for the entirety of Africa that I'll just move around with boats, 1 stack in South America, and 1 stack in Mexico because you will need to fight a bunch of natives here, a couple of stacks in India to fight the nations over here. Some of them will be pretty large by now, and there will be strong alliances, and probably an additional stack over in Southeast Asia for this entire region right here. And of course, you will want to establish many navies. You probably won't want to station one in Europe if you're not expanding in. These guys only have light ships here protecting trade. You won't need one for the New World as well if you're not transporting troops, but you should definitely have lots of ships present over in Southeast Asia because these are very strong maritime nations, and you should have lots of ships stationed in India. So make sure you create 2 grand navies, 1 for over here and 1 for over here, and then you can have just some transports laying around elsewhere in the world. Of course, by this point, if you fought Castile, you should have taken back all your subject scores right here. You will continue to push into them and conquer all of Iberia, annex your subjects. You may have gotten Granada like I did earlier. If not, you're still gonna get them. And that's pretty much the gist of what you need to do over in Europe and North Africa. Of course, we will have a couple of great projects as Portugal, primarily the 3 over in Iberia and the 1 over in Morocco. The Bellum Tower is excellent for a nation such as Portugal. You will want to upgrade it to level 3. El Escorial is also excellent for having colonies. Definitely upgrade this as well. Alhambra is super powerful, and Ait Benadu is also awesome for all that trade power. So make sure to upgrade all 4 of these monuments. All 4 of them are really good. There's no particular order in which you need to do it. Just make sure to do it. For our first 2 idea groups, we took exploration and expansion. After that, it really is pretty much up to you. Anything you pick as Portugal will go along great with what you have. If you take mill idea groups, you should go for offensive, quality. You probably won't need quality, so offensive and quality are the ones you want to go with. And from non-military idea groups, you should choose to go with either religious or humanist. Both of them would be pretty good, but I'd recommend humanist slightly more as Portugal, and then you can take economic or admin, so all of these are very nice. As for the diplomatic ideas, influence, trade, or diplo would go very well. Even though you might go overboard with merchants by taking trade, the trade modifiers are really nice, and it'll go along with Portugal's national ideas really well, and you'll be swimming in ducats. So you have lots of choices. If you want to focus on the economic style, go economic and trade, but make sure to take one of humanist or religious as well, and you don't really need a mill idea group, but you could go for quality or offensive, or even quantity for the nice policies. For your tier 5 government reform, you should go with meritocratic recruitment. For tier 6, you should go with royal decree. For tier 7, you should go for exploitation of the New World. For tier 8, you should go with Leviathan. For tier 9, you should go with l'état c'est moi or regional representation, but all 4 of these are really good. And then for tier 10, you should take political absolutism, but once again, all 3 are really good, and either choice is valid. And like I said, around the 1490s, your realm should look a little something like this. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you want to watch me do stuff like this live, you can follow me on twitch.tv/TheRedHawkLive, and if you want to catch up on stuff from over there, you can subscribe to the second channel, link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot. And boys, consider subscribing. I am trying to reach 100k subs before New Year, and we're almost there, so let's give it one final push. And you can become a member today and join the Discord, the link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.